Welcome to the She Builds Show. I'm your host, Stefanie Olson, a licensed general contractor who builds new construction, renovates, and designs your vision. Today, more than ever, we need raw, authentic women who are willing to rise above society's norms, break those glass ceilings, and encourage each other to boldly build the life we were meant to live. So, honey, what are you building? Welcome to the She Builds Show. Today we have an incredible guest, Kelley Elmore. She recently started a company doing small room renovations and accent walls. And she's always had a love for DIY and started a blog to show projects that she's working on. And now Fixing Up the Place, LLC was born. So welcome to the show, Kelley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So tell me, what was your deciding factor, or what's the one thing that kind of like pushed you over the edge to like start the company?
Well, I've always had a love for DIY. My husband and I worked on our previous home together and fixed it up and renovated it over about a 10-year period. And when we bought this new house in, I guess it was 2020, I don't know, he works a lot and wasn't able to really help me on projects like he was at our previous home. So I've just kind of had to YouTube stuff and teach myself. And I kind of fell in love with the process. You know, I'll tell you what, full time, I'm a practice manager for an anesthesia group. And it was something about COVID. During the COVID period, trying to do my job, it did not matter how good I was at my job, how hard I tried to be organized, to be ready, like with the scheduling aspect of it. I had to schedule for multiple facilities. And I would have the schedule perfect. Everyone had the right amount of hours. Nobody was overworked. Nobody felt like they were not getting enough hours. It was perfect. And it never failed. That night or the morning of, I would get a call that someone had a fever. Someone was in contact with somebody else who could possibly be exposed to COVID, and they would have to cancel the day. So no matter how hard I tried to do my job, there were other aspects that would affect it, and I could never do my job to the best of my ability. But when it came to DIY projects, the outcome of the project was directly related to me. I was in full control over how it turned out. I took my time. If I was meticulous and paid attention to details, it would always turn out great. And it was just, I don't know, something about that time period that made me realize how much I enjoy projects, especially working on projects by myself, start to finish. I'm totally in control.
I love that. No, I love that. It's interesting that you say that, you know, just in terms of having somebody else kind of mess up your schedule, because like that is the life I live every single day. Like I literally make a schedule. We, like our project managers, we make schedules for, you know, subs and things to happen. And like the only guarantee in my work as a contractor is that it's going to get messed up, that there's going to be a problem. So when you say that, I'm like, oh, that's my job. That's my job, just to like manage the mess up and reschedule. So I do understand it, but there's also like a part of me that's just like completely accepted that. And it doesn't bother me. You know, it's like, okay, we shift, we move, like we have to be flexible. So you kind of learned about yourself that you don't like maybe being in charge of other people. Was that kind of the portion of it?
No, I don't think so. It's just, I'm not so much in charge of other people. I manage the schedule to lots of different facilities.
Okay.
So it's just like, you know, before it would be kind of a well-oiled machine and the schedule would be in place and, you know, people were going to get up and go to the job and everything would be fine. But when COVID happened, there were so many other variables that just the day you never knew what you would be walking into, I guess. And I had to deal with the fallout from surgeons and everybody if you couldn't provide like an anesthesia provider that day. And so I don't know, it's just something about like, you know, if I'm doing a project, if I'm like, I just finished redoing somebody's bathroom, I know that I'm going to show up. It's up to me. I'm going to get the materials. I guess that's why I enjoy doing like the small renovations, small, like single rooms, because I'm in total control over the whole process of it.
Yeah. So it's something like correlated, directly related from the input you put in, the output is exactly as you want it to be. And nobody can like mess it up.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay. So that's a beautiful thing to learn about yourself. That it's like, I think it kind of relates to, my husband used to do insurance, like Aflac, and he used to say that there was nothing tangible about selling insurance. Like you can't ever see the result. And he quit doing that. I don't know how many years it's been now, a lot of years ago. And he just like plays in the dirt, not really, but like, big machines, and he can go in and like take trees out and clear stuff. And it's like, it's this physical thing that he can see that he's accomplished. And he's like, it's hard when it's, you can't see it or you're not in control of it. Right. So I think that tangibility was important. So then go back to my question of like, what part of that made you like jump in to, starting your company? So you have this frustration, you aren't enjoying it. You just like, did you get laid off? Were you like, okay, I'm done with this job? Or are you like, I'm just going to do DIY on the weekends? Like, tell me a little bit how you got there.
Sure. So when we bought this house, I posted everything that I did. And I got a lot of pretty positive feedback and a lot of people who were interested in it, and started with friends and family that wanted me to come do these projects, which I never really even considered as any type of career. But the first person reached out and said, hey, can you redo my laundry room? And I was very intrigued. And I was like, sure, I'll try it. And it turned out pretty darn good. So it started on social media. And then the blog I started years ago started to finally get some traction and interest, and people really finding images on Pinterest that they really liked and had no idea of how to make their room look like that. So they kind of asked me if I would be able to, I guess, implement it and make their room look the same. So it really started with friends and family asking me to come help them with their space. I like what I see you doing. Is there any way you can make my house look like that? I need your help. And I'm sure, okay, let's try it. And it actually turned out pretty good. And now I'm really busy doing it, but it is very much on the weekends. I still do that job as a practice manager for the anesthesia company, which I do love now that COVID has kind of calmed down and things are somewhat back to normal. Right. Because I do like kind of managing the craziness. I think I'm one of the few people who really enjoyed waiting tables growing up because it's just chaotic. And the fact that you can manage the chaos is just, I really enjoy that part. But it's nice to be able to have this kind of avenue where I get to be creative, use my hands, and create something beautiful and something tangible, like you said, where you can stand back and look and see exactly what you just worked 3 days on and kind of have something to show for it.
Right. So like, what kind of projects are you did that laundry room. Are you doing like everything by yourself? You have no other help? Or are you doing like I love the like accent wall, offering, because I feel like people just like it's lovely and it's an easy thing to do, but a lot of people just like don't have time or the knowledge to do it. What kind of things are you doing?
That's kind of what I'm finding too, is that a lot of my clients are wives who are either tired of waiting on their husbands to do it, or the husbands don't have time. And so they kind of bring me in to do, and I find, a lot of people just don't have the tools or they don't have the interest in learning how to do it. And I love it. So I have done the laundry room, adding shiplap and shelves and flooring, and then board and batten a couple times, both bathrooms. And then I had a client recently who moved into a new home who just wanted some sort of accent wall in their kids' room. So it was like a chair rail and the sons, because they did, different color paint on the top and bottom. So like separated the room really nicely. And then their daughter's room, it was just trim pieces, just like horizontal trim pieces that were evenly spaced. And it just made a really neat accent wall, just, something different than just painting a wall a different color. But
right.
That's it so far. I have a lot lined up, a lot of things that I have never done before, which is really exciting. It's funny because if you had asked me a year ago about the projects that I was planning on doing, I would not be as bold, I guess, on taking on these certain projects, but I have learned something about myself. I don't want to say that I have not come up with anything yet that I can't accomplish, because that sounds a little, but
it doesn't. No, let yourself say it.
it's been really fun to kind of push myself to try these new things. And I'm not going to lie, my husband is very handy. So I know that if I get into a situation, he's like my plan B. Like I bounce ideas, and he's an electrician too. So like I bounce ideas off of him, and I'll tell him like, I'm thinking of doing it this way. And he'll be like, well, you can do it that way, but if you want to make it look more finished, then you should probably do it this way. So it gives me a little bit more confidence with trying new things.
Absolutely. So how are you like getting the education to learn how to do, maybe projects that you haven't done before?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that I have done, I've been projects that I have practiced in my own home and kind of learned what does and doesn't work well and kind of finalize it before trying it at a client's home. A lot of the time it's bouncing ideas off my husband, coming up like pre-planning. I do a lot of the pre-planning at home, kind of with him, sort of like a meeting setting, and seeing if he has any suggestions, but it's really just been trial and error. And I don't want to say I've got
some YouTube.
A little bit of YouTube, a little bit of blogs, a little bit of internet.
Yeah. So there's not like, besides your husband, there's not anybody else like in your life that's shown you like, this is how you do this, or this is the tool you need. There's been none of that.
Well, okay. My dad growing up was a contractor, and he had a contracting company, and he did a lot of commercial, mostly restaurants in the beginning, remodeling. And then he did residential towards the end. And as a child, very young, I used to go to his job sites with him. And I think that's when I fell in love with the process, because he would bring me to, whether it be just usually homes before he started. So I got to see how it looked beforehand. He would kind of tell me the plan. He'd bring me in the very middle of the mess when it's just a disaster and you can't possibly imagine what it's going to look like at the end. And then when the project was finished, he would bring me back later and say like, see, this is, remember I told you I was going to move this here and do that there. And so seeing it from like trying to imagine in the beginning, the chaos in the middle, and then how beautiful it is in the end, I think that made a big impact on me too. And I, yes, would give anything to be able to call him now and bounce ideas off of him. He passed away in an accident 4 years ago, which I think kind of helped motivate me into kind of stepping out of my comfort zone and trying this. I think he would be really proud.
Yeah, I think so too. You're going to make me cry. I love that your dad, exposed you to that, because there's a lot of people that like mentally can't see what an end project or product or their house or a wall or their home or their kitchen is going to look like. Like they just can't see it. And so I think like he gave you a beautiful gift that's like, here, let me show you what it actually looks physically in the world. And now you can picture those things in your mind. And absolutely. I never knew that was like something that I had in my brain, because I can walk into something and absolutely just see what it should look like. And it's interesting to find out that there's a lot of people in the world that can't do that. That they just like can't vision in their brain.
I also think that doing projects yourself, because we all get right in the middle of the project, at least me, there's always a point where I'm like, oh God, what did I do? Or like you start to question if your choices were right. And then at the very end, you're like, okay, yeah, that was the right paint choice and that was the right trim to use. And so seeing where you get to that point where you're questioning it and then the finished result, you kind of build that confidence too, and, trust your instincts. And
absolutely. What has been maybe like one of your favorite, projects you've done so far, whether in your house or somebody else's?
So, okay, I have two. My first one is in our new home. We have a front, I call it a sitting room. It's just like one of those bonus rooms. I'm not real sure exactly what it was supposed to be, probably just a sitting room. And we moved in and I told my husband, I'm going to paint that wall black. And he's like, oh God, that'll look terrible. And I'm like, no, I'm actually going to do the whole room. It's going to look great. He did not think it would be great. Lots of people on Instagram told me, do not paint a room black. That's going to look terrible. It's going to look terrible. I finished it and it is the most sophisticated, classy, dare I say, sexy room in our house. And it is beautiful. It's so pretty. And so watching people come in and go, oh my God, like I've had people reach out to me and go, hey, what color paint did you use? What sheen paint? What this? Because it turned out so good. And that was one of those times that I like trusted myself. I'm like, I'm just going to take a chance. It's just paint. You can paint over it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
So that's my favorite in our house. And then the project I just finished has been my favorite client project so far. Her home is very white and it's very pretty, but it's very white. And in her powder room, she wanted to go a little bold, wasn't sure, kind of wavered back and forth. And finally she's like, you know what? Let's do this wallpaper and this paint color. And it was a dark gray wallpaper, textured wallpaper, which I don't want to make a habit of doing wallpaper. I'm just saying
Yeah,
it's not easy, but it's dark and it had like black accents. And then I did board and batten up a little over halfway of the wall. And we painted that a really dark charcoal gray. And it turned out phenomenal. It looks so good. I think just the colors, taking a chance as a client, taking a chance on colors that she wasn't 100% sold on. And it just turned out beautiful and she loves it.
Oh, that's so fun. I love that when you make people happy.
Me too.
Okay. So you're still in that kind of like, mode of my new adventure doesn't have to completely support me financially. And so you're kind of in that, halfway. What has been, maybe the biggest challenge so far? Are you thinking about doing it full time? Do you want to? What's your thoughts around that? And what maybe is your biggest challenge you've had so far? Because it sounds like right now it's just been fun and enjoyable and something you just get to be creative with in your spare time. How's that feel?
I guess my biggest challenge is absolutely time, finding the time. Trying to find time to just fit everything in can be difficult in life in general, but our son is really big into travel baseball right now. He plays for 3 different teams. We're really busy. We're traveling to Georgia this weekend for a tournament. So time is an issue. And I'm not going to lie, I would love to do it full time one day down the road. I think I would like to do that full time if we could fit a few other things into the equation. Like my husband and I have always wanted to do real estate investing. We'd have always wanted to maybe flip properties, maybe have some rental properties. All that's a very long-term goal at this point. I don't see us doing that anytime soon. But I mean, yeah, if this takes off and I continue to have as many projects as I do right now, I'd love to entertain the idea.
Yeah. Get a little time back. It sounds like, it's a beautiful first step that you're enjoying, and hopefully it's not become stressful at this point and more fun.
Right.
Well, that's good. Or do you use, just curious, do you use any apps to help, organize, schedule, be inspired? Give me your top 3.
Inspired for projects?
Yeah. Or do you have any apps that you use for scheduling or running anything or communicating with clients? Or you just how are you? I was just wondering if you had anything that helps you, because sometimes people, when they're starting, they're learning, and I didn't know if there was anything you're oh my gosh, I love this.
No, not yet. I'm hoping I probably should look into something. I just use my calendar on my phone a lot. And when it comes to clients, they're usually reaching out through Instagram or text. It's either friends or family or friends of friends of friends. That's happened too. So no, just text messages and making sure I stay up to date on my calendar. Yeah. And I have sticky notes around the house to make sure I don't forget things.
What about creativity? Do you get inspiration from any certain places?
I love Pinterest.
Yeah.
I love Pinterest. Pinterest, Instagram are probably my favorites.
Yeah. I was up this morning at I don't know, I woke up at 4:15 today. I don't know why, but I woke up and I'm this, one of my clients was I really want, I love blue. And I'm I'm not really a blue person. It's not my jam. It's gotta be the right blue, And I'm I gotta find a way to throw in some blue into her house to make her happy. So immediately at 4:30 in the morning, I'm looking at Pinterest, and my husband walks down at 5 something, and he's did you have creative juices or something flowing at the crack of dawn? I'm yes.
That's me too. I like to get up about maybe a half an hour before I have to wake up the kids before school. And that is just me and my coffee's personal time to sit there and scroll Pinterest or come up with my to-do list. I'm very much a list maker, but I had to do the same thing because the next project that I'll be working on is kind of like a custom built-in cabinets and like bottom cabinets and then bookcases on the side for a living room. And I've never done that before. So I have the concept, the idea of it, and I've sketched it out, but I just kind of wanted to look at options. So I was on Pinterest this morning, just me and coffee, scrolling.
Right. I know, me too. I'm like, do I look like a psycho? He's like, yeah, you do. I'm like, all right. I'm like, but I figured it out. What about, how do you deal, just like personal question, how do you deal with maybe like self-doubt? So it's something that you haven't done before. You know, you kind of touched on it a little bit, like what is something that, like, where are you finding your strength from? How are you, overcoming that fear? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that may feel like you, that really want to get into this, that sounds like you didn't have any like crazy, experience or teacher or anything like that. And you're just like, I'm going to go for it. And I love that there's just like this DIY community that's like, yeah, let's buy some power tools and let's make it happen and let's make some beautiful things. How do you kind of overcome that fear or that self-doubt?
Well, so, I mean, I'm not knocking down walls or doing anything drastic that can't be fixed. So I guess really just doing it. Like I get nervous when I went to do a wallpaper for the first time. I had never done it. So I'm YouTubing.
I feel like wallpaper is a 2-person job, by the way.
Okay. First of all, it's a nightmare. It's terrible. And then
you need like 7 people to make sure it's all right.
It's so true. And then this one was the kind you have to physically paste. Like I've used.
Oh gosh, I've never done that. I've only done the like love versus design, like the peel and stick. And that is still really difficult. Like we have a laser that we buy. Like I have a laser to make sure. You need a laser.
We should have gotten a laser this time. My husband and I both talked about it. So the client tried to pick out a wallpaper that doesn't have any patterns in it. And so I put it up accordingly. And then when you step back and look at it, you realize it definitely has a pattern.
Oh,
and
no.
It's lined up somewhat. So I did have to go back. So that's a good example. So I guess to answer your question is I just try it. Right. And like I said, I'm not taking down walls. I'm not doing anything that you can't fix or start over.
Try again. Yeah.
So like that project took an extra day because I did have to go back and remove the wallpaper because she looked at it and she sends me a picture. She's like, it just doesn't look right. And I'm like, you're right. It doesn't look right. So we removed it. I removed it. I kind of sanded the wall some, got the texture away from the paper backing on the wallpaper and did it again. And she did end up having to get a little bit extra wallpaper, but it ended up being amazing at the end. But I guess I have found that when I step out and try things that I'm nervous about, probably 90% of the time, I like the end result. And I just need to trust in myself and know that, I mean, anything is fixable. It's a paint color. It's a.
Right. And I love that because I think so many people, like I've been listening to some people teaching lately, and it's like, we can think about things for so long that we actually think we're doing something. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That we ruminate on those thoughts about whatever project or whatever it is, that the thinking happens for so long that we think the thinking is the doing. And it's like, no, the thinking is not the doing. It's time to do it. Let's go.
Yep. You're absolutely right. Absolutely.
So I think that just kind of like, just do it. And I think, what was the quote that I heard the other day? It was like, discomfort is the currency for your dreams.
Oh.
Yeah. I was like, I need to write that down and post it on the wall.
There is a song, I just found it recently, called Daydream. And it is so good. It's like the whole premise behind it is, remember when we were kids and we were playing like astronauts and, whatever in the backyard. And then now we're adults and like that imagination has been replaced with fear and you're afraid to step out and you're afraid to try things. And the lyrics, it's like, if it scares the hell out of you, then it's probably worth doing. And like that song just really resonated with me. And I'm like, yes, I feel that in my bones.
Because then it feels like you're alive and it's not just like going through the motions and doing things. So I think that's why I love that you're, just stepping out, like you're absolutely like an inspiration to so many other people that, maybe they have a regular job just like you. And they're like, I love this. Like I just talked to a girl yesterday that she hates her job with like all her life. And she feels so stuck. And I just was like, hey, let's chat. Let me see if I can help you like push through this. And all I did was like, by next week, like you're going to make a decision and I'm going to call you and you're going to have to answer to me, like just some accountability to it, because it had been 4 years, like enough is enough. And I think we just get stuck thinking that like our life just has to look the way our life looks and we have no choices. And you're like a testament that that's not true. You can be creative and still fit it in your life. Like there's ways to do the things that are truly passionate to you and to try them on. And like, I love when people just like throw things against the wall and like, see if it sticks, And I think that is, a beautiful part of like showing that you can feel the fear and do it anyways, and try it. Yeah, girl. Like I feel the same way. Cause I build houses and like my daughter, I don't know how many months ago I can't remember, but she was like, I want this. Like she found something on Pinterest and she's like, I want this. And like, it was like a board and batten wall. And I can't tell you how many times I messed it up. Like I didn't want texture on the wall, right? Like I wanted smooth, brown, ugly boards that you paint, that you put up, to make the wall smooth. And, I get that in. I think I cut the holes for the outlets wrong, like 6 times. Like maybe not that many times, but I'm like, how, like, this is what I do all day. How could I measure wrong or how could it end up wrong? Like, I felt like such an idiot. And then like, I go and I get some trim and like the side trim that she was on and the new additional bats that I had bought were thicker than my baseboard. And I was like, God damn it, Stefanie. Like, how do you like not pay attention to these things? This is like all you do all day long. And I just like one thing after another, I'm like, this is the worst. That
was my first board and batten experience was kind of like that.
And you're just like, oh my God. And you can't do it. You can't leave it like that. You can't have like board and bat sticking over your baseboard. Come on.
Exactly. So I started that. It was for a client and I got
everything. Actually, you know what I had done? I had measured it and it was correct. But because I had added that like 1/4 inch board on the wall, that's why it stuck out, and I was like,
oh, so you put the backer board up.
Yeah, I put the backer board up and I just like, tacked that whole thing to the wall once I got the holes for the outlets in the right place. And then, I went to go put the baseboard back on or what, I don't know. And it was like off and like,
that's frustrating.
Yeah. I'm like off 1/4 inch.
My first board and batten experience. And I hadn't even gotten started yet, but this goes back to your, like when you're afraid to start something and nervous about it. In my head, like you said, I had worked this project 100 times. I was ready.
Yeah.
I get there to the lady's house. She goes to work. So she's like, here, good luck, whatever. She leaves and I'm alone with the bathroom that I'm about to make over. And I immediately feel unbelievably overwhelmed. Like, what did I do? I've never done this project before. And this is a client. I mean, she's going to pay me for this. What am I doing? And it was, what's imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Where you're like,
I'm not made for this. Yeah. No. I lied to her.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. So I sat on her toilet and I cried for about probably 8-9 minutes. Then I was like, all right, time to put on your big girl pants. You made it, figure it out. And I did. And it turned out great.
Right. Oh my gosh. I totally understand. I was just like, what? But you know what? It's like now, like we walk, like you go in my daughter's room or you go in that bathroom and you're like, that looks so good. And I learned some like these different ways to actually like, where I had her light switch was where like the top board, cause I only did like a half wall of the board and bat. And where the light switch was, I like learned, I'm like, I really hate it when people just cut out trim and they don't like angle cut it and like make it look custom. I'm like, how do I make this look so custom? And I did like all these freaking, 45-degree angle cuts to have this like built-in, thing around her light switch. And I'm like, I'm so proud of it. It looks so good.
I bet that looks good.
It does. And it took me way too long, but that's okay. But that kind of stuff, it's like, I had never done that before. And like my guys and people that work for me, when they do trim, they don't do that. And I was like, I want this to look like, somebody knew what they were doing. So it's still fun. Okay. So tell me, is there anything else that you would want to like share, encourage, just tell the listeners anything you want to say?
Just don't be afraid to try. Just like I have people all the time that write to me on Instagram and say like that room that's black. I could never. It's beautiful, but I could never. Why could you never? Why?
Right.
Like, it's just paint. Paint over it if you don't like it. Like, just try it. I understand people not wanting to buy a whole garage full of tools to do things, but the last accent wall that I did, I used trim cutters. It's a little handheld trim cutters.
Yeah.
And it was screen trim, super thin screen trim that, I mean, it took me a while to get the measurements quite right to have them all equally spaced, but it took no time at all. And if you don't have a nail gun, you could use liquid nail. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but you could use finishing nails and a hammer.
Right.
I mean, there's ways around it.
For sure. I love that.
In your home, your home should be your safe space. Your home is where you can try things. You don't have to worry about what other people think because it's your own home. So if you have a space that is just boring and you just want to liven it up some, like, just try it. Just try new things. That's all. Try new things. You're probably going to love it.
Absolutely. Or call you if you need.
There you go. If you're local, call me.
Okay. So tell people where they can find you, follow you.
So I'm most active probably on Instagram. My handle is Fixing Up the Place. And then I also have a blog, www.fixinguptheplace.com.
Cool. Well, I love it. And I'm following you and I'm just so proud of you. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And I hope someday you fully step into it.
Oh, thank you, Stefanie. I appreciate you having me.
Of course. All right. You have an awesome day.
All right. You too. Thanks.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me today on the She Build Show. My name is Stefanie Olson. My hope is that this episode leaves you feeling empowered and ready to boldly take that step into building the life that you envision, 1 2x4 at a time. And if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. I get giddy over reading the reviews each week, and I will choose one special person to win some She Build swag. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out if you're the winner. Thanks again for hanging out. Be sure to visit me at theshebuildshow.com, where you can ask me questions and share with me what you're building.